Look at it. This is the latest. Look at him. Here he goes again. Well, you know what here he goes again means? He's doing what he said he was going to do. He promised you he was going to do these things. And he walked into office week one, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he's saying, y'all do something about it. And when you try to do something about it, he's going to say, look at them now. Now they're concerned about these issues. Were they talking about that during the campaign? Hell no.
Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith are at it again, calling out their own side for losing touch with the very voters they claim to represent. As lifelong Democrats, both believe their party still has what it takes to defeat Trump, but only if it's willing to confront and abandon a few toxic habits that have alienated everyday Americans. So what exactly are those habits? Let's find out.
Trump is cool now. He's not just the most powerful guy in the world and just made himself like the richest. He's actually kind of 78. Yes. I mean, rappers like him.
Maher is absolutely right. The surge in support for Donald Trump is nothing short of remarkable. Not long ago, the idea of Trump regaining political traction seemed almost laughable, especially after the relentless barrage of criticism from left-leaning media outlets. They branded him as unelectable, hoping to bury his political future beneath waves of scandal and outrage. But in a surprising twist, every attempt to destroy him only made him stronger. Trump weathered every headline, every smear campaign, and every effort to silence his voice. Today, he's not just enduring, he's thriving. Even people who once couldn't stand him are taking a second look, drawn to his defiance and his refusal to play by Washington's rules. Ironically, the media's obsession with tearing him down may have backfired, transforming him into the very symbol of resistance that millions now rally behind.
Convicted on 34 felony counts. And the American people still said, he's closer to normal than what we said.
Exactly.
That's what they're saying. He's closer to normal. Why? Because something that pertains, when you talk about the transgender community, for example, and you're talking about issues that pertain to less than 1% of the population, the Democratic Party came across as if that was a priority more so than the other issues. And so he comes into office. Now you're talking about childbirth, citizenship, and what have you. He knows that's not going to pass the muster. But he knows that he made that promise. So when he shows up week one on Capitol Hill and he says, this is what we're going to do through an executive order, even though it's going to be shot down through the courts and what have you, he's saying, I kept my promise. A lot of other things that he's going to point to that he's going to try to do.
I've said it countless times on this channel. Trump understood the assignment. He zeroed in on the core issues that genuinely kept Americans up at night: the economy, the border, and national security. While Democrats were busy twisting themselves in knots trying to appease every loud faction on the far left, Trump spoke directly to the frustrations of working-class Americans. He didn't bury his message in academic jargon or performative virtue signaling. Instead, he talked about jobs, safety, and stability, and that's what resonated. To his credit, Bill Maher recognizes this too. He's repeatedly warned his own party that obsessing over ideological purity while ignoring bread-and-butter issues is a losing strategy. Trump's strength was never in his polish. It was in his focus. He paid attention to what people actually felt, not what the elites thought they should feel. And that, more than anything, is why his message continues to hit home.
Look at the left and you say, what promises did you keep? Now, you might know the answer to that. I'm certainly not questioning your knowledge about that at all. What I'm saying is what resonated with the voter. What voter out there can look at the Democratic Party at this moment in time and say, there's a voice for us, somebody that speaks for us, that goes up on Capitol Hill and fights the fights that we want them fighting on our behalf. They didn't do that. And that's why their behinds are home. And that man...
Beyond their muddled message, the left failed to truly represent its people. Ordinary voters, once the backbone of the Democratic base, began feeling abandoned, unheard, and politically homeless. They watched as party leaders obsessed over identity politics, bureaucratic red tape, and elite concerns, all while ignoring the everyday struggles of working families. Inflation soared, the border spiraled out of control, and crime crept into neighborhoods that were once considered safe. Yet, instead of focusing on real solutions, many Democratic leaders seemed more interested in chasing Twitter applause than addressing tangible problems. Under the Biden administration, that disconnect only deepened. Promises of unity gave way to division and disillusionment. Americans looked around and saw no one fighting for them, no one tackling their rent hikes, job insecurity, or growing sense of national uncertainty. Frustration soon turned into fatigue, and fatigue into detachment. As a result, A growing number of Americans are now searching elsewhere for leadership, anywhere but the party that once claimed to be their voice. Just look at the networks right now. The shift is undeniable.
Goes again. Well, you know what here he goes again means? He's doing what he said he was going to do. He promised you he was going to do these things. And he walked into office week one, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he's saying, y'all do something about it. And when you try to do something about it, he's going to say, look at them now. Now they're concerned about these issues. Were they talking about that during the campaign? Hell no.
Trump remains a constant thorn in the side of the Democratic Party. And frankly, it's not hard to see why. He embodies everything the DNC claims to despise: bluntness, defiance, and a complete rejection of political correctness. But ironically, that's exactly what draws people to him. While Democrats drown in focus groups and carefully sanitize talking points, Trump talks like the guy at the end of the bar, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically himself. For many Americans, that feels refreshingly real in a world where most politicians sound more like PR representatives than leaders. As Stephen A. Smith perfectly put it, people see Trump as the closest thing to real. They might not love everything he says, but they trust that he means it. In an era where authenticity is rare and institutions feel hollow, Trump's imperfections have become his greatest strength, turning him into both the Democrats' biggest frustration and their most persistent political nightmare.
Yeah. Because when I see, especially in the aftermath of the election, some of the things that transpired with the Democratic Party, you know, in an effort to manipulate the election and the vote, it really ticked me off. When you hear people talking about practical things, and then I saw folks on the left basically trying to guilt me into voting for you, it bothered me. I might have ended up voting for Kamala Harris because I didn't like how Trump acts. But what I didn't do was call him a racist. I didn't call him a Nazi. I knew Trump before he ran for president.
Yeah.
We talked on the phone. We talk at basketball games or boxing events. I knew this man. And so some of the things that were being said about him, I knew were not true. And I was saying, come on, y'all.
The strategy of demonizing Trump worked once, but only once. In the previous election, left-leaning media outlets successfully painted him as a national menace, a chaotic force destined to destroy America's future. That fear campaign resonated for a time, but by 2023, cracks began to appear in the narrative. Many moderate liberals, worn down by inflation, rising crime, and endless culture wars, started to wonder whether the real danger was Trump or the establishment that never stopped warning about him. The media's caricature no longer matched the reality people were seeing with their own eyes. For all his flaws, Trump came across as more genuine, more human, and more relatable than his polished but distant opponents. When voters looked at Kamala Harris, they saw a politician rehearsing her lines. When they looked at Trump, they saw someone speaking from the gut. That contrast, authenticity over artifice, was enough to change the entire game.